The story takes place in 1916 during World War I. I'm a British soldier on the Western Front during the Battle of Somme. I wasn't expected to survive after what happened. The gas, as we called it. It wasn't like any other I had ever seen before. I had seen chlorine gas before, like a mucus-colored cloud. It floats along the ground, filling every trench and body-filled crater, relying on the wind to reach its enemy. I had also seen phosgene gas. Phosgene gas resembles more of a thin, wispy mist, almost like thick cigarette smoke, but trust me, it is a lot more deadly to breathe in. I sat with my mud-filled boots and blood-caked clothes, watching the horizon, making sure not to peek too far above the trench. We were hungry. For the past 3 days, all I had to eat were my little bread balls and chocolate. The others hunted for rats, but I cannot stand to eat them. We were thirsty. My canteen, now empty, could only be filled when it rains. Sometimes I had to drink water straight from the trenches. This could not go on much longer. The gas. I saw it slowly approaching, but it was not green or white like the others. It was a distorted clear mist, almost like what the world looks like on a warm summer day. The others did not think much of it. I didn't either. Then again, it is not unnatural to see things that aren't there when you are tired and thirsty. However, I find it odd that we were all seeing the same thing. Eventually, the gas grew closer, and nightfall fell upon us like a wave of darkness, engulfing us. Getting situated, I crouched, carefully peering over the blood-stained, bullet-torn sandbags. The darkness and fog hindered my vision, but I could still see into no man's land. My eyes grew weary. I had not slept in 40 hours. I began to slowly slip into slumber, but that's when I saw it. A German soldier, obviously ripped apart by shrapnel and bullet wounds, stumbled toward our trench. He was 60 yards out but approaching quickly. As he got closer, I realized he was missing an arm, as well as his lower jaw. His left leg had clearly been hit by shrapnel. Flesh and tendons hung from his knee. His bone protruded from his leg, but he did not seem to care. Then, at 30 yards out, I began to wonder why the machine guns hadn't cut him down yet. It would be impossible to not see him. Put the bloody bloke out of his misery, I thought. I waited about 20 yards. I reached over to the soldier beside me and shook him awake. I told him a German soldier was coming. We grabbed our rifles, preparing to kill this man or whatever he was. I turned. I shouldered my rifle, and then I popped my head above the sandbags once again. He was gone. I saw him. He was there. He was injured, but he still had his rifle. I said, "I don't see anything. Get some sleep. Your eyes must be playing tricks on you," my comrade said. I lay down in the muddy inlet of the trench. I saw that man. I was sure of it. But I could no longer even worry. I was too tired. The smell of rotting bodies and the sound of swarming flies kept me up for a short while, but I eventually succumbed to my exhaustion. I later awoke to the sound of gunfire mixed with blood-curdling screams and a maniacal laughter. Cries of agony and shouts of rage filled the air. At first, I thought the enemy was charging, or that a nighttime trench raid had gone terribly wrong. I sprung to my feet. I grabbed my rifle and moved out into the trench. On the floor was a fellow soldier, crawling on his hands and knees while holding his throat. Immediately, I thought the Germans had launched chlorine gas and he couldn't breathe. Reaching for my gas mask, I soon realized I was mistaken. Blood poured through his fingers, which were tightly wrapped around a gaping wound on his neck. He reached his hand up and grasped me and pleaded for help. This cry for help soon turned into rage. His eyes turned blood red as he began to claw and bite at my legs. I turned around and ran as fast as I could. When I turned the corner to the next trench line, I was met with a horrifying sight. One man was perched on top of the other. He ripped apart his stomach and began to eat the soldier's intestines while he was still alive. Another soldier danced around while singing and laughing maniacally. One soldier with a gas mask sat in the corner of the trench, rocking back and forth while sobbing and screaming. I turned back around to run the other way out, only to be met by a man on fire. He screamed. He cried. But there was nothing he could do but die. I pushed through the soldiers, if that was what they even were anymore, and made a mad dash along the line. To my left sat a man. He had dug out his own eyes and was starting to eat them. To my right sat the lifeless body of my commanding officer. In his hands was a pistol, and his brain matter and skull had been splattered all over the duckboards. It was clear what he had done. I continued to run and run until I suddenly felt a surge of rage in my body. As I started looking around frantically and confused, the whole world started to fade, and it seemed as if it was melting. The earth became a deep blood red color, almost like cherry wine. The sky turned into an ashy gray filled with the smoke from the surrounding fire. All I saw was death all around me. Soldiers continued to kill each other for almost no apparent reason. I stood in awe as I saw one man bash another person's skull with a rock. Another picked up a lantern and proceeded to throw it at the ground. The fire and flames engulfed a number of soldiers, but they continued to fight. At this moment, I began to feel a sense of anger. One soldier who was on fire began to approach me, screaming for help. For some unknown reason, my arm began to reach for my trench club. My muscles felt pumped. I was full of energy and I wanted to kill. I fought my way through the crowd of already dying soldiers, killing everyone in sight. After all those around me lay dead in a pool of mud and blood, I snapped out of my fit of rage, dropping my trench club. I realized what I had done. I gazed down at my now crimson hands. What was done was done. There was no turning back. I pulled myself up above the trench and stared off into the vast no man's land. I looked back into the trench, now turned into a gladiator arena. All the way down the line, I saw men running, screaming and killing. It was the end. This was how the Battle of Somme would come to a close. Above the trenches lay the distorted clear gas that I had seen the previous day. The gas was the source of this mayhem. After a while, I sat down on the edge of the trench and put my feet over the sandbags. I scribbled down a few words to my loved ones onto my Bible, and then tucked it back in my front pocket. I heard them. They were coming. I got prepared to run, but I stopped as I saw them. I could have ran, but I came to a realization. Sometimes in war, there is one thing worse than death, and that is survival.